through hell, Jennifer, but the truth about women in overcrowded prisons is they are not charged nor sentenced any differently from anybody else. And it's not the discriminating attitudes of the prison wardens who adopt these policies that make a problem, but the lack of employability and the increased respect that will ensure that they'll have a place in society. Begin with their introduction, first of all. I'll just argue one, that they're equally sentenced, from Justice Review, spring 1985. In comparison to males, both entrance and penetration to the system are reduced, leaving only the most serious female offenders for full prosecution. My argument is that because only the worst are in prison, these are the people that are not susceptible to rehabilitation. Those that can be rehabilitated are going to be rehabilitated. These are the absolute dregs of society, and they belong in prison for a purpose. But now go into contention one, which he claims gender discrimination. 3 responses. First of all, she's got it all wrong. The gender discrimination is in favor of the women. From Justice Review, previous qualified. High respectability, as might be associated with high occupational prestige, works to the advantage of women in conflict with the law, as does high dependency, which signifies informal social control, as might be provided by the presence of dependents, especially children. People work to increase respectability, which is already high. But 2, it's irrelevant if the dregs of society are rehabilitated, because once you're in prison, you can't get a job anyway. Once you have even committed a felony offense, employers are not going to want to give you employment. But 3, the women are not going to be able to affect their children. To the extent that if they're in prison, they're not going to be affecting their children. The lack of rehabilitation of these people is not going to matter whether that child commits crime. But if it's the lack of an adult role model that's going to be the problem, these children are either little A, going to be put in foster care homes, little B, put in another protection of the state, or C, given to relatives to look after their care. Either way, these people will either be cared for or not adversely affected by their parents. On the B point, where they tell you that the vocational educational training is ineffective because of discrimination, I'll say that she's set up an absolute PMA circumvention here with an attitude. To the extent that she grants that it's the people adopting the program that have this discriminatory attitude. Either it works for the advantage of people, in that case the programs are good in the present system, or it works to their detriment, and they're not going to be able to change their attitude no matter what the law is. People find ways of circumventing what they don't want to do. But truth and common sense have still not emerged victorious. The present system's zealous but mendacious policy of overcrowding prisons and jails to combat the drug problem has turned our rehab centers into warehouses, without any decrease in drug use, crime, or overcrowding. And with a false dogma of retribution by our side, we have turned the war on drugs into a war on minorities. 1. The law enforcement overcrowding emphasis eliminates alternatives. The Detroit Free Press, January 29, 1990, explains the problem. The White House continues to emphasize law enforcement responses aimed at controlling the supply of illegal narcotics without making an adequate effort to reduce demand through expanded prevention, treatment, education, counseling, rehabilitation, and research measures. This foolhardy stick-your-finger-in-the-dike approach has certainly not stemmed the tide of drug crimes and prisoners. F. Martin Tiber, Deputy Appellate Defender of Michigan's Corrections Crisis, January 18, 1990, explains, our prisons are overflowing not because of an increase in the crime rates, but due to a combination of severe sentencing and a media-fueled crackdown on crime, now drugs. Forbes of March 12, 1990, quantified the extent of this drug-induced tidal wave of prisoners. But 85% of drug offenders are in state and local prisons. It's amazing the dike has held for so long, especially given the force of waters it is vainly trying to hold back. The present system is saturated with the massive harms inherent in drug use, and ironically, the present system can't swim. 2. The law enforcement emphasis assures catastrophe. The present system has opened the floodgates for death and destruction, as the Wall Street Journal, July 13, 1989 documents. Hard drugs are estimated to kill 4,000 people a year directly and several tens of thousands a year indirectly. The suffering extends to the innocent, as the New York Times of July 1, 1989 details. Heroin addiction and other drug abuse causes or contributes heavily to an extraordinary range of disordered behavior, including homelessness, mental illness, family violence, and child abuse. Drugs are responsible for crime, most adolescent runaways and suicides, and the irresponsible sexual behavior of intravenous drug users that has far more to do with the spread of AIDS than does needle sharing. But the scariest effect of all is the present system's inability to just say no when it feels the need to ignore individual rights in a vain attempt to solve the problem through law enforcement. Milton Friedman implores in the Wall Street Journal, September 7, 1989, the path of more police, more jails, harsh penalties for drug users, and a whole panoply of repressive measures can only make a bad situation worse. The drug war cannot be won by those tactics without undermining human liberty and individual freedom. But that's not all. In its desperate attempt to keep from drowning, the present system has stolen the water wings from minorities, specifically those of blacks, as F. Martin Tiber, previously qualified, contends. The racist application of the expanded tools and resources of the war on drugs has been amply demonstrated. Studies show that the war on drugs has become a war on blacks. In the spirit of Harry Truman, the hell that is the present system has been exposed and the truth is wrung out. The present system is going down for the last time. Teach it to swim.
Okay, Joe. Please start on the first contention on the first card.